How long have I been into whiskey or been in the whiskey industry?
Either or both.
Into whiskey a long time.
Yeah. Since he's been 18.
More or less.
More or less. We can't say before that.
Yeah, so a little over 20 years.
Right.
With Great Northern I was 8 years with Great Northern on the 4th of April this year.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah, so started off as a process operator, done IBD qualifications, moved into middle management position, done some software implementations, things like that, ended up looking after stock.
Yeah.
Got on the blending side dealing with customers, so that's why we're here today with these range of whiskies. Yeah.
Now, Great Northern Distillery is a producer of whiskey, but you don't have actual brands yourself.
No.
Well, Burke's, but we won't talk about that.
We produce for private label brands, retail own label, bulk whiskey for ingredients, different things, all of the above. Capacity is 20 million litres split across 12 million litres of grain, 8 million litres of malt. That equates to 3,000 casks a week, or just over 1 million bottles of whiskey per week.
Wow. I hope we understood that, right? Okay.
Yeah, so it's...
2 years ago I was there. I interviewed John as well as Brian, and you were in the middle of an expansion process.
Yes.
Has it been completed?
That has been completed,
okay.
yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, that's completed. So we essentially doubled the capacity of the malt plant.
Right.
Yeah.
And the grain was also planned to double that as well, I thought.
The grain, there still is rough plans, but it hasn't been doubled yet.
See, that was the question there.
Yeah.
Very good. So you're making a lot of whiskey, and when I talked to John the last time, he mentioned Africa as the next big thing. Are you, as Great Northern, still betting on that? Or is it now India?
I would say that, having a look at the figures at a sort of a high level, there's maybe some of the traditional markets, have kind of maybe hit saturation.
Yep.
And there's definitely plenty of promise in the emerging markets. Key would be to look at the fastest growing and largest volume.
Yep.
I can name them, but I won't.
I won't. No, don't worry. I wasn't asking about that.
There's huge potential.
Yeah.
There is, and some of the emerging markets, even from if you look at the population that's drinking, there's massive potential.
Yeah.
So, from that point of view, I think future is quite bright.
Yeah.
And yes, we are working and moving towards those markets, and also I think there's the growth in those markets and the kind of growth in the category. What we're also seeing is the increase in inquiries from domestic players in those markets looking at Irish as a category, and a lot of spirits companies have a portfolio of bourbon, scotch, etc., brandy, whatever. So a lot of them want to add Irish to it as well because they see the potential. So.
Yeah, there is a lot of potential. One of the questions I'm asking is, we talk about the Irish renaissance for Irish whiskey. Are we plateauing, or are we actually still growing?
I think we're still growing. As I said, I think there may be plateaus, or there may be we often wondered about COVID.
Yeah.
During COVID, we hit we actually broke targets with production and things, and we were kind of scratching our heads, and the whole world was at a standstill.
Yeah.
We did wonder, when are we going to see the effects of this? Maybe a little bit now. You can see it in some categories. The States would be a good example, and people often say if they sneeze, we get a cold.
Yeah.
But the likes of the discounting of some of the premium stuff, like the cognacs and things like. I don't want to name company names, but it's been covered in sort of fairly respected publications.
Yes.
And I think the sort of understanding is that it's during that time people maybe had income to spend elsewhere and kind of trade it up or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's essentially a correction that's happening rather than a doomsday scenario.
Yeah.
So, but contrary to that, then the emerging markets are actually on your graph there, hockey sticking.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Where do we fit in all of that? We can make what you want.
Exactly.
And I think that's the story of Irish whiskey, is innovation. And I think the fact that there's so many brands out there that are trying different things. Naturally enough, we do that with some of them. Also, then we can create different flavors for different markets, and it's not all the same. If you think about what you grew up eating, the food I grew up eating versus Asia or India, or palates are different, and I think people need to be conscious of that in markets. I'm currently studying at the moment, doing an MBA, so I've done a little bit of that for my dissertation, where I've looked at Europe and China and the difference in taste preferences, and the results are interesting. So I think that when people say that key is good marketing, and absolutely you cannot discount that, but also I think the key is flavour. And I think if you can if you have a good looking product and a good tasting product, then you really do have a winning formula. And I think a little bit of work needs to be done on that, but we produce all styles of Irish whiskey. We have a lot of flex with innovation, considering the cask types and wood types we're allowed to use. So I do think that any flavour profile that's required can be achieved by us, by brands, by any players in the...
Let's talk briefly about the ingredients. You have your barley. Is it basically all Irish barley, or do you buy outside of Ireland your barley as well? You need massive quantities. We need a little bit. Predominantly Irish. Okay. So the barley is Irish, except for the peated. Right.
Yeah, that's the only one that's sourced. Comes over from Scotland, primarily due to the maltings that are set up to do it. And the maize then for the grain product is French.
Okay, good, very, very good. Now the wood is all over the place, but a lot of bourbon barrels and a lot of interesting wine and fortified wines, I assume.
Yeah, I mean the wood is all over the place, and absolutely. We bought I think it was over 100,000 bourbon barrels this year.
Wow. Okay.
So all the other wood types, your fortified wines, your spirits, your brandies, cognacs, rums. I mean, even we've differentiation within the rums. We've differentiation within the fortified wines and sherries. It's no longer just Oloroso PX. Your Palo, your Amontillado, Fino. So it's great. It's really great to see what people are making, and it's good to be part of it, and that being part of my role and part of what my team does is we basically develop flavour and play with it. So it's enjoyable, but it's challenging too.
Maybe an important ingredient, we can argue or not, is water as well. America has hard water with our limestone. Scotch wants to have soft water. What does Ireland want? What does Great Northern want? There's a little bit of story there, I think, for Great Northern in particular with your water source.
Yeah, I mean, water is an ingredient. Anyway, yeah, I mean, okay, you can argue the toss on it, but we need water for whiskey production in loads of different facets. We need it to clean. We need processed water. We need it to cool. We need it to add in. We need it to disparage from mashing. We need it. We also need it then to cut the spirit. Our water is soft. Our water comes from the mountains. It's actually coming in on a direct line.
I mean, making 1 million bottles of whiskey a week means you need a lot of water.
We have a dedicated water source, and we have a dedicated reservoir up in the mountains. It comes in a straight line into the distillery. Our site is neighbouring a train station, which in modern times does not hold much significance, except trains also at one point ran on steam. So running boilers or running engines, soft water is always better. The thing about soft water as well is it's a lot easier to add hardness to water than it is to remove it.
True.
So I would always opt for soft in that regard. Going one step further on that, on water as an ingredient, and it's probably a thing people don't think about as regards when they're thinking of casks and flavour even. If I was to take a blend that we've made up, and if I was to put it at 46, 44.5, 43, 41.5 and 40% and blind taste you on it, you will swear blind that one of the whiskies is different, minimum of one.
Of course.
So there will be a sweet point there where the actual flavours are expressed the most. And that may change.
Or maybe even two sweet spots.
Yeah.
I've experienced often. It's like,
Correct.
oh, 41 is great and 48 is great, and then, oh, which one do we do?
Yeah, and they're different.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would argue the toss from that point of view that anything that plays an active role in changing the flavour should be considered an ingredient.
Yeah, I agree. That's why, very, very good. Well, thank you for this nice little history lesson as well. That's
You're very
little,
welcome.
Information here about the water source. You're basically a contract distiller. Just you can answer it however you want. If I want to buy 1 barrel from me, you send me over to the Celtic Whiskey Shop and say go to their barrel program. If I want to buy 100 barrels, will you say yes, or do I need 1,000 barrels? Where do I start to actually become a customer directly by the Great Northern Distillery? Ballpark figure, please.
Ballpark would actually be a load.
Yep.
So what we're dealing with here is packages that are easily handled administratively and logistically. So a load, which is a trailer load of casks, which is actually 108 barrels.
Yes.
That'd be a good starting point. Depending on what your intended use is, then the conversation would either be a case that you would take them away and warehouse them yourself, or we can also offer warehousing. Yeah. I mean, clearly, if you want to buy 1,000 barrels,
then you're the guy.
Yeah. We'd like to talk to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
So that's a nice number there to know about what's going on. Thank you for all those interested in maybe starting their own brand with Irish whiskey. I can highly recommend Great Northern. A lot of people have done it with good reason. Thank you very much. WhiskyJason here. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. I got to talk to him about your rates.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's perfect timing.
Yeah.
So you have the whiskey